48 hours later, the sun has come up yet again. It's time for NC State football to get back in the lab.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's Monday show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB in all caps to receive 20% off of your order. Happy Monday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, a lot of reiteration from our post-game feed on Sunday following Tennessee's 51-10 beatdown of NC State in Charlotte for the Dukes Mayo Classic. 48 hours later now, how are we feeling? Are there more silver linings, lowly embarrassment feeling? Where are we at here on Monday?
You know, I'll tell you, it depends on what eyes I'm looking at this through. If I'm looking at this from the fan eyes, right, still feel the same way.
Yep.
If I look at it through the team eyes or through a player's eyes, you move forward, you have to go on. You cannot let 51-10 turn into a loss at Louisiana Tech, which then turns into a drubbing at Clemson, which then turns into your season's down the drain at that point. You can't let that happen. And then from a media perspective of this thing, right, the eyes that you and I currently sit in and we're currently privileged to talk to the fans from, I would say it's a mixture of all those things. Yep. It's a mixture because there's part of me that's like 6 touchdowns. That's how much UNS has lost this game by. 6 touchdowns. That's insane. And then there's part of me that's like, hey, if I'm talking to the fans, you've got to ball it up and throw it away. You can keep this in mind for when big games come up to set expectations and to level set that while you expect them to play better, you shouldn't expect dominance or even a win. But, you know, that's kind of how that goes. And then, you know, of course, from the last space of there's still a lot of season ahead. I mean, that's something that hasn't changed as well. On day one after the loss, all your goals are still there. But again, it's a moment where, you know, you just kind of sit here and wonder, how did it all go so bad so quickly? And why am I leaving this game? I knew that, you know, regardless of the result of the game, you were going to potentially leave with more questions. But I don't think that there's a single thing that I have answered other than our pass catchers are legit. That's the one thing that I have answered by a mile. If teams try to go tempo against us, we'll be good against that in terms of alignment too. So I guess those are 2 things that I have answered. Literally almost everywhere else, I have questions.
Yeah, I think it's important to try and keep the main thing in a sense that, yes, all of your goals are very much still on the table. And I don't exactly love how it feels when I say that we predicted Tennessee to beat us. Grand scheme of things, okay, well, we're 1-1 at this point. We predicted we would be. And yes, all of our goals are still on the table. We haven't played any ACC games yet. There's still a whole lot to play for in your final 10 games. The reason that doesn't feel good is because you did get drubbed by 41, and it opened up a lot more questions than you have answers for in terms of what needs to be fixed in a very short amount of time. I've seen a lot of people going back and forth so far on social media in these 48 hours. Some people are already checked out. I think that is a bridge too far because, yes, you still have 10 more games. In a year where the ACC looks relatively weak, you could still have the opportunity to compete here if you can get all these things cleaned up. So I understand the frustration. When you lose by 40 or 30, maybe even sometimes 20 to anyone, it causes a world of hurt. And so to be embarrassed like that on a national stage, all those emotions are very, very raw there. It's important, kind of what I was talking about on the post-game live feed. Confidence factor is super important for this team. The season is not going to wait up for you. You have to get in the lab, study how to fix your issues, and then present those forward when you see Louisiana Tech here at the end of this week, because otherwise one loss will very quickly snowball into 1 loss, 2 loss, 3 loss. And then at that point, then your season may or may not be over. So it's super important to learn from this, take the good with the bad. There was a lot of bad, but from that, you can create that into further good. So It's important to overall wipe this and know that you still have everything still on the table for you the rest of the season.
Yeah, there's a ton still on the table, and I do want to give pushback against one thing that I've been hearing a ton. Oh, they spent $8 million on their quarterback. We're just not on that level. Can't compete. I'm sorry to tell you all this. Money does not always equate to wins. Go look at what's happening in the Pacific Northwest with Oregon. Who spends more money than them? And congratulations, if you're listening, you have as many national championships as Oregon has. Good job. You've done it. We've all done it. Congratulations, Wolfpack Nation. But in all seriousness, I say that to say, you can't, at the end of the day, if you are a fan and you choose to let that temper your expectations, that's fine. You know what I mean? I'm never mad at that, but that's just what it is. And one last thing that I'll say here, Wolfpack Nation is one of the best fan bases that I've ever been around, ever seen any of that. And moving forward back to the game here, the reality is, like you said, Grayson, all your goals are still in front of you. You still got everything there. And the fan perspective of this, if I'm a fan, I'm disappointed in how bad this went, but the expectations have been lowered to a point. For me, from a fan standpoint, the expectations have to be lowered to a point where it's like, I'm not mad at fans for saying this another year of 9 wins, maybe. But I will say every loss should not be, man, do I still want to be a fan? And I get it. This is not an ordinary loss. This is a drubbing on national TV. I'm not mad at you for saying that puts a little stank on it. It puts a little extra something on it. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying from a standpoint of, it's all right. This happens. It shouldn't happen. You don't want it to happen. Year 12, it's embarrassing that it happens. It happens.
There's layers to it, kind of like what I was saying. Many of us predicted us to lose this game, but the fashion in which you lost it, that is why it's so alarming. Because yes, in a sense, it does sort of lower your expectations for the rest of the season. Coming into this game, you were hoping you were going to see a better version of the week 1 team, and you might have gotten a worse version, even though it was a much better opponent. But many red flags that need to be addressed very quickly before you get to the rest of the season. That is why a 41-point loss is so alarming. I've seen a lot of people talk about those expectations of this 2024 team. Kenton, something that you say a lot on here, it's a privilege to have things expected of you. Because otherwise, if you're indifferent, that's a much different place than where NC State currently sits. So in a sense, it's like a blessing and a curse to have a big game on a national stage. Now, the other half of that is we haven't been winning any of those. And that is another point where a lot of people jump off really quickly. And I totally get that. I'm irritated about it. Kenton's irritated about it. All the fans are irritated about it. A 41-point loss, that leaves a mark. That absolutely leaves a mark. But nonetheless, NC State has their own problems here to fix very quickly before they progress to week 3 and then they're on out. So long story short, it's time to get back in the lab, lick your wounds, fix what's fixable, and then prepare yourself for Louisiana Tech coming up here at the end of the week. Coming up next, we're going to get into our offensive and defensive reviews, seeing how we did against Kenton's Keys in this game against Tennessee. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is 5 Hour Energy. Do you want to get in shape, but you're having trouble staying motivated? Make 5 Hour Energy shots part of your lifestyle and get that energy boost that you need in order to get fit. We all know that sometimes you just don't want to go to the gym. Take a 5 Hour Energy shot to give you the feeling and alertness that you need in order to make it there. With 0 sugar in a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and so many more. There's a flavor for everyone, so make sure you try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors. They're delivered right to your front door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5 and then hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB in all caps to receive 20% off of your order. This offer is only valid from now until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with any other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, so get on over to 5hourenergy.com today. Middle portion of our Monday show. Now time to walk back and look at Kenton's keys for this Tennessee game and highlight what we did and did not complete on Saturday night. So first, we'll look back to the offense. Our first offensive key was to be +2 in turnover margin. Did not hit that. Now, we did turn Nico over twice, and that was good to see. However, the McCall pick six, and I believe we also fumbled twice. We were not able to accomplish that one. The second offensive key, Grayson McCall passed for 300+ yards. That one was not close. I believe he finished with 104 total passing yards. Hard to do when there's a multitude of issues, not just on the offensive line, but the quarterback accuracy, the whole 9 yards. That one was nowhere near where we needed to be against Tennessee. And then the last offensive key, 2+ touchdowns for KC Concepcion. Did not have any offensive touchdowns. Clearly did not get that one done either. Kenton, what are your thoughts here? 0 for 3 on offense.
Disappointing performance. Disappointing showing. I don't know what I got one thing wrong. I do think you walk away with multiple answers on offense, and those answers are the following things. Our pass catchers are legit. Those guys know how to get open. They know how to find open space. The amount of receivers that were running open, the amount of tight ends that were running open, the amount of guys who found ways to get open. There's something there. But the second thing is Hollywood Smothers is a running back. That's the second answer you come up with. And other than that, this offensive performance leaves you with so many questions. Like, again, the Tennessee defensive line is good. They're deep. They're talented. They're all the things. Every adjective you can think of to describe. They're athletic. They're versatile. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. You did not look competitive at any level. And then lastly, the quarterback play has been so atrocious. It hasn't been, it's serviceable. The quarterback play has been so bad, so thoroughly bad, that I am left with a question on the one position that more than any other is outside of the receiving core. We were supposed to have, hey, this is the answer. We've got it answered. Anytime your strength is your Achilles heel, you are looking very, very funny in the light. And we look like the funniest comedians to ever live. I'm talking Richard Pryor level at the moment.
A lot is being said about Tennessee's defensive line. I mean, that's an elite unit. That is one of the better defensive lines, probably the best defensive line, if we're being honest, that we're going to see all year. I think they have a step above Clemson. That's one of the better units you're going to see all year. And they played like it. They mowed through our offensive line all night, makes Grayson McCall's life very difficult, as if it wasn't already difficult enough. The receivers, I do agree with you. I was pleased with the amount of separation that you were able to get. But again, if you can't hit those receivers, how much does it really matter? It doesn't. So there were several plays watching back through the tape where we had an open guy, maybe the incorrect read or just simply not enough time. That happened more often than anything else. Not enough time to make the correct read and get the throw off. Credit to Tennessee's defense. They showed up. They were more physical. They were faster. They were stronger. All the things that they were supposed to be, they were. And it caused a multitude of issues for us. So credit where credit is due there. Now, on the topic of wide receivers, KC, although not being able to be targeted as much as we needed him to, he's still KC. That one funky formation we ran where KC went into motion and then ran that deep cross and McCall hit him over the middle, that was probably the best play we had all night long and ultimately didn't amount to much. But that type of creativity from Manai is something we've been lacking here in the first couple weeks. Once you fix those structural issues, both at quarterback and offensive line, then you can start to get into more creativity. You got to walk before you can run. But it was nice to see a flash like that one. It inspires at least a little bit of confidence moving forward there. Turnovers are still a problem for McCall. I think he fumbled not once, but actually twice in this game, in addition to that pick six. You got to be able to take care of the football, not just against any team, especially against a team like Tennessee, because they will not give you the opportunity to make up for it later on. Once you get down by double digits, more often than not, it's going to be a wrap. So the pick six, I'm still hung up on that. I've seen a lot of Tennessee people say, that play is not more or less why you won or lost. It's not, but that was a major turning point in terms of momentum. A play as substantial as that one, it can make or break teams. We all saw what happened to NC State after the conclusion of that play. So you got to take better care of the ball. You got to make better decisions. You just got to be tougher. And I think that's something that Peyton Wilson was talking about last year after that embarrassment at Duke. The team just wasn't tough enough. That applies right now already in 2024. You got to get tough. You got to dig deep and play for each other moving forward, or else perhaps you will run into more struggles like we saw on Saturday night. So we certainly didn't think it would have to happen this early in the season. Hopefully never at all, but it's time to do so. You got to get back in the lab, address what needs to be fixed, and jump right back on the horse before you head back out there this following weekend. Now jumping over to the defensive keys. The first one, we had hold Tennessee under 10 points in the first quarter. Did do that one. Surprisingly, talked about that on Sunday. I was pleased with the way the defense showed up in the first quarter and a half. You made Nico sweat a little bit, made him work back there. You held Tennessee to a slower start than they are accustomed to getting off to. And I thought Tony Gibson's scheme did a good job up until that point. Once the offense withered, the defense kind of followed suit. So you at least got that one key down.
Before we move on from there, I want to make one thing clear. Through the first half, how many points did the defense allow, Grayson?
13 total points.
What else do you ask for of your defense?
Yeah, I think if you told any NC State fan you're going to hold Tennessee to 13 offensive points at halftime, everybody's like, oh, so we're in it then.
Things kind of unraveled in the second half. And that's absolutely on Gibson and company to get some of those things sorted out. But in terms of key number one, which was stop the fast start, that happened. They did that. They stopped the fast start. They did what they were supposed to do in that regard. And, kudos to them. Hats off to them for accomplishing this key, because it was critical in keeping this game respectable for any amount of time.
I think where NC State had success in slowing down Tennessee's offense early, then Tennessee made the shift to be more run heavy. And that's where Tennessee really took off from that point on. Dylan Sampson, that guy's a beast. Second key here, we had 1+ field flip into positive territory. Do you count the pick six?
Sure. I mean, even beyond the pick six, I believe there was another interception that we had that put us in plus territory as well. I believe
the Bishop Fitzgerald interception, I'd have to double check where he ended, but I think it was close. You're right.
So, I mean, again, the defense, if you go into the game and you guarantee me, Kenton, this team will hold Tennessee to 13 points in the first half, you will pick Nico off twice. One of the two will be a pick six. I'll take that bet.
Yeah.
I'll take that bet. I'm with that. I love that. Let's talk about it. But, things shook out the way they did other than these two things. And it's, disappointing, but hey, it is what it is. Again, kudos to the defense for accomplishing this one as well, in terms of if the game were close, that pick six might have mattered.
Yeah, the lack of complementary football and then the addition of Tennessee's speed and aggression, not exactly a good formula. And the third defensive key, we had sacked Nico Iamaleava 3+ times. Missed on that one. I think we finished with 0 sacks. We had a couple pressures, but ultimately could not get him on the ground there. So defense, I'll say 1. I think defense accomplished 1 of 3 keys. What are your overall thoughts here?
I mean, the defense first half, that was a good job. I wouldn't say perfect. It was good, though, other than a few moments where you let Nico break contain, where you have everybody covered. And honestly, let me say this. There is another thing I got to answer. Our defensive backs, not named Aiden White, also good. How do we match up at all these different positions? How does Cisse look against Squirrel? How do we kind of, everybody not named Aiden White, do we have guys we can trust? Other than one deep bomb, because, yes, Tennessee hit multiple bombs, but a majority of those were Nico's back there making a sandwich, having a nice day, saying, oh, yeah, that's, Bank of America. Charlotte is really nice at this time of night. Not too much light pollution. I can look up in the stars. I can go ahead and spot a tight end about 40 yards downfield, because there was no rush there, which I understand the logic of, hey, we don't want to get beat over the top. We want to have some coverage, sure, all that good stuff. Defensive line in that pass rush have got to get home. There's got to be something that to make somebody uncomfortable. And I understand 3 to 5, that's nasty work. I'm a big believer in you should always have at least 4 rushing. I'm a big believer in that. Three-man rush should be reserved for very, very rare situations. But with that in mind, you see moments where Nico's back there chilling, making a sandwich, doing his thing, selecting whichever playlist, putting on his favorite wine before he winds down from a long day sitting in the pocket. Of course, he's going to find somebody open. But for the most part, when there were moments where Nico was made uncomfortable, or when there were moments of those pressures, the defensive backfield held up phenomenally. There was one big play that I look at and I say, even with everything, even if we get home early, that play still busts. Other than that, I think they did a pretty good job in coverage. Tackling is another story, but coverage, I think they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, you beat me to it on tackling. I have a point on that in just a second. But overall, leaving this game, I felt okay about the secondary. I think that they did their job relatively well, all things considered. If the game was much closer, they would have been tested a lot more than they were in this game. But, looking through the stat sheet here, Brew McCoy, 1 catch for 10 yards. Chris Brazzell, 3 catches for 18. Dylan Sampson out of the backfield, 3 for 37. Holden Stays, he had 1 for 18, but that one was a touchdown. Miles Kitselman, the tight end, 3 for 39. Squirrel White, 2 for 67. Dante Thornton, who went off for Tennessee in week 1, didn't even have a catch in this game. Now, again, this game is much, much different if we weren't losing by 30, 40 points in the second half because Tennessee didn't need to throw the ball. But all in all, in that first half, because really that's only when it was competitive in this game, in that first half, I thought the secondary did a good enough job to keep Nico and the wide receivers at bay. Tackling, yes. In terms of containing Nico, containing Sampson out of the backfield, tackling just simply was not good enough. And Kenton, you had that tweet mid-game where it seems like there were several situations where we had the guy in the correct spot to make the play, and then the play was time after time after time just not being made. You can't do that against Tennessee. You can't do that against anyone, but especially a team like Tennessee. I think that's a lingering concern because I kind of felt a very similar way from that Western Carolina game. The tackling hasn't been aggressive enough. I don't think they've been finishing tackles in the way that we have expected a Tony Gibson defense to do so. So that's something I'm going to have my eye on moving forward. But the defensive intensity and grit has not quite been there yet. And so Tony Gibson, if we know him like we think we do, he's going to be on them all week to toughen up and finish those tackles. It's imperative. You have to be able to get off of the field in big-time situations like you had Tennessee in. I know the first drive that Tennessee scored the touchdown on, that shovel pass, I think it was 3rd and 14. If you stop them before the line, that's a field goal. You hold them to a field goal right there. Little things like that snowball into bigger things later on. So you have got to be able to get off the field on third downs. And in this game, just did not happen as often as we needed it to. So all in all, 1 for 6 against Kenton's Keys. That's not going to cut it against anyone, but especially not an SEC power like Tennessee is. Coming up next, we're going to give you our big picture takeaways from this 51-10 loss after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor of the day is Ibotta. It's tailgate season, which means it's barbecue season. Stock up on all your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta. You won't have to choose between burgers or hot dogs because with Ibotta, you're getting both. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every single time you shop. Earn on 100 of items from groceries to beauty supplies and even toys. You can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns up to $256 back per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or maybe a fancy dinner with someone special. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back using the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store. Last couple of minutes before we get you out of here on Monday, we're going to give you our big picture takeaways from this tough loss against Tennessee in Charlotte. Kenton, I'll let you go first. What are you taking away from this loss moving forward?
If you're a team, hyper-focus on each game. Hyper-focus on everything that you do. It's not about the opponent. It's about you. It's not about the opponent. It's about you. It is not about the opponent. It is about you. We have 10 games left on the schedule. And going forward, Grayson, how many of those teams do you look at? Even with what we saw, even knowing that our offensive line cannot get pushed against Western Carolina, even knowing that our quarterback actually I'm not going to assume that our quarterback play stays as bad as it's been, because if that's the case, we are not going to have a good time against anybody. But assuming that our quarterback play rises to the level of completely average, you're not hitting game-breaking plays, not even game-winning plays. You just hit plays that you should. Nothing more, nothing less. How many teams do you say are more talented than NC State for the rest of the year, of the 10 games that are left?
I'd say like 1, maybe 2.
1, maybe 2 teams. I'll be aggressive and say two games. That 2 games still gives you what? 3 losses on the year,
Yep.
puts you at 9-3 headed into a bowl game with opportunity for 10.
Yep.
Listen, at the end of the day, every opponent is faceless. You do you in the way that you need to do it. And I say that because the plays that have beaten us, the defining plays, the plays that have worked against us, they haven't been the other guys doing something that's so amazing. I've seen running backs that I'm just like, oh, that guy is a load to bring down. He's going to be a load for everybody. That's, did Western Carolina have one of those? And yet we still struggled to make tackles. And this is not a slight to Tennessee's running backs at all. Again, they rushed for over 6 yards a carry for a reason.
Yeah.
More power to you, brother. They dominated. They whooped our ass. This is not taken away from them. What I'm saying is, even if we erase the T off the helmets, even if we erase the cats off the helmets, I don't walk away from either one of these 2 games saying this team is good enough to sleepwalk through any game. Hyper focus on the technique. Hyper focus on the finish. We have seen starting linebackers finish with as many tackles in a game as a tight end. We have seen not 1, but 2 interceptions. And I watched the film on the second. Don't worry. For those of you who are confused about this, that will be the Locked On Look of the Week.
Surprise.
Surprise. We have seen 2 interceptions where the receiver of the pass was within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And the second one looks so much worse when you play it in slow-mo. When you break down the film, you legitimately are stuck saying, how do we get here? What are we doing? So with that in mind, I say all that to say, this is about you. And you know the crazy part, Grayson? What did I come into the season saying this season was going to be about?
It's about NC State.
Your countenance and attitude. And your countenance and attitude right now are one of not finishing tackles, are one of throwing interceptions within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. That's what the countenance and attitude is right now. There's no vision, there's no execution, and there's just, all out struggling to beat a SoCon team, getting the brakes beat off of you by a Southeastern Conference team. That's what I've seen so far. So the big picture takeaways I have, there is still a lot of season left, and there is still a lot of teams that, even with what we've seen so far in all these bad respects, the only thing that I need to get exponentially better, I would like for the offensive line play to get exponentially better. And I think that it helps this team. I think it solidifies and guarantees you a 10-win season if that gets better. I don't know if I can count on that. But what I know that I need for a fact, the quarterback play has to improve. Offensive line play, yes, it would be amazing if it improves, but we have enough talent to where just hit a few passes, just hit a few, and we'll be all right. But the quarterback play has to improve to the point where we're hitting some shots and we're doing some good things, especially in quick game. And defensively, finish the damn play. It's like playing great defense and not getting rebounds in basketball. Well, congratulations. The possession keeps going because you didn't want to do the last thing, which is the most important.
For me, big picture, our skill players in our secondary, they continue to prove us right. Those are our 2 clear strengths on this team. However, the offensive line, the quarterback play, and the overall tackling on the defensive end, that has to come way, way up if this team wants a shot at 10 wins still, or a shot at the ACC championship still, or trying to get into the CFP still. The level of execution has to come exponentially up in a very short amount of time. In virtually anything in life, there's your account, there's someone else's account, and the truth, more often than not, lies somewhere in the middle. I can't sugarcoat this game because it was about as bad of a loss as you could have taken. 41 points on ABC against a team that you wanted to compete against to prove yourself on a national level. When it ends like that, that is about as poorly as it could have gone. A very small silver lining is that's the most talented team you're going to play. I don't really care about that. All I care about is getting better from this point on. How you rebound now and get back in the lab now and fix your problems now, that is going to tell me more about this team than what I saw on Saturday night. Because all in all, it is a long season. It feels short because there's only 12 games, but you got 3 months to prove yourself at the very end of it. Hitting a massive roadblock in week 2, yeah, nobody wants to do that because it derails a lot of those expectations and hope that many of us had coming into this season. Looking the way we did, there's really not much of an excuse for that, even despite all the talent that Tennessee has. The NC State should not get blown out to that proportion against a team like that. So you got to find a way to gut check yourself, find that mental toughness, find that physical toughness, and you got to get right back to work starting here on Monday before you move into week 3. We said this on Sunday. It's really no longer a 12-game season. It's a 1-game season, 1 week at a time. Your new focus is on Louisiana Tech. Nothing else matters. Not Clemson in 2 weeks, not Georgia Tech in November, not the Dirty Foot Club the week after that one. Nothing else matters except for getting better right now before you play Louisiana Tech on Saturday. You cannot afford some of these mental errors to persist because that is how this will snowball into more losses than just one. All of your ACC goals still on the table. CFP goals, they feel a lot bleaker than they did a couple weeks ago, but realistically speaking, they are still on the table. But it's up to you. If you want to get there, you got to get back to work right now. There's no reason to throw in the towel. You can maybe softly touch an alarm button because there's some concerning play that we've seen so far, but all is not lost. I've seen some folks calling for CJ Bailey. I don't think that's the answer. Not in week 2, at least. If it comes to that later in the season, so be it, but not in week 2. You can't pull the plug in week 2. That would feel like ultimately punting on the season. Coaching staff's not going to do that. I'll tell you that right now. So the team needs to rally together. The coaching staff needs to rally together. The fan base needs to rally together. I know we're disappointed, but there's no time to feel sorry for yourself. Get back on the horse, saddle up, and get back to work. That'll do it for us here on Monday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box, mash that subscribe button if you have not already. As Kenton mentioned, we will be back on Tuesday with the Locked On Look of the Week. You're certainly not going to miss that one. That's a fan favorite for good reason. And until then, we'll see you tomorrow. Go Pack.
Go Pack.